All right. So, Darin, I have here in my hands a poem,
Oh,
and I'm going to read it to you. And your job is to tell me whether or not you think it sucks. Okay.
okay.
Now, I wrote it. Well, I didn't really write it. I kind of had some help. I used a computer program, an AI program, and so the AI wrote the poem, but I didn't like the poem that AI wrote, so then I rewrote the poem, and then yeah. So how it works is I put the words in. I use words like, incandescent, effervescent, and like, luminous, those kind of types of things. And
Oh,
then AI wrote the poem using those words. And so really, I mean, I wrote the poem, but AI kind of wrote the poem, but we wrote together. You know what I'm saying? So
okay.
it's kind of my poem, but not my poem. Um,
You wrote it, but AI structured it. Is what
yeah,
you're saying.
but yet then, yeah. So
Okay.
you'll see. I mean, I'll go ahead and read it to you. You tell me whether or not you think it sucks, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. So the poem's title is My Contractual, Obligated, Human Adult Female.
Okay.
Roses are red, violets are blue.
No, I got to stop you there. That sucks.
Yeah, you're right. It sucks.
Yeah.
Well, at least I didn't write it.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Jonny Craddock.
And I'm Darin Lundberg.
And today we're going to talk about a movie, 1993 film directed by Thomas Schlamme, starring Mike Myers, called So I Married an Axe Murderer. We have a special guest today, RJ Craddock. My wife, Ruth, is going to join us. But before we jump into Axe Murderer, Darin, we had a special guest last time as well. We talked about The Fifth Element. We had Nguyen Lay on, film critic and journalist. What do we think about that one?
Well, it was a movie that is very Chris Tucker and very Chris Tucker centric, and I think that threw me off when I saw it in the theaters. And then I think it was your first time, and you just kind of jibed with the tone was going for and the over the topness. And yeah, it was the way that. First of all, it was a real honor having went on like him, just making great strides for not only like Vietnamese actors and Vietnamese writers, all those things, but also by doing that, by making great strides for my family, my Asian family. And so it's great watching him kind of build his reputation and get all his writing out there and actually make a difference, and like we talked about, his footprint. So that was a great honor to be able to chat with him. He's a good friend on Twitter. He's be a good friend in real life. I think he's living in Texas, so if he ever pops up at your house,
Yeah, that's right.
take him
Yeah.
to a nice place. But yeah, so Fifth Element was, watching it again, it's like after all these dystopian futures where everything is dark and drab and rainy, it's refreshing to see a movie that's bright and poppy and just boggles your eyes and kind of your mind. And just like you said, didn't you say something about you just kind of let your brain like relax and you just kind of went with the
Yeah.
visuals?
I mean, that was a thing that caught my attention, was the color palette and was the production design and just the way things looked, and all the technical aspects of this movie were just really, really well done. And so I had a fun time watching all of that.
Yeah. So great. Again, Fifth Element, great conversation. Absolutely go and listen to that. Also go and check out a lot of Wen's writing and a lot of the other podcasts he's shown up on. Do him that favor.
All right. Well, let's jump into So I Married an Axe Murderer with RJ Craddock. But before we do, let's go ahead and watch the trailer.
Okay.
Kiss the beautiful bride.
This summer,
Let's get dressed!
Mike Myers takes a whack at marriage with Nancy Travis, Anthony LaPaglia, Amanda Plummer, Michael Richards, Stephen Wright,
What are you doing? Wake up!
and Mike Myers. So I Married an Axe Murderer
She's quite a filly.
starts Friday at a theater near you.
Okay, so I Married an Axe Murderer, 1993, directed by Thomas Schlamme and starring Mike Myers, Nancy Travis, Anthony LaPaglia, Alan Arkin's in there. Amanda Plummer is also in this movie. Is there anybody else that I'm missing?
Well, we'll go over the cameos and stuff like that.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it's Schlam, not Schlammy? I always thought it
Yeah,
was
Schlam. I looked
Like-
it up, man, because
like-
I was worried I'd get it wrong.
like
So I
Schlam.
looked it up. Yeah, I thought Schlamme or something, but no, it's Schlam.
That's he should respell that. That's not right because it looks
Unless
like Schlamme.
unless
Looks like-
AI was wrong and it told me to pronounce it incorrectly. But as far as I know, it's Schlam.
Yeah. Oh, AI's
We're
kind
getting it right.
Okay.
Anyway, Darin, we have a guest, obviously.
Yes, we do.
Ruth, my wife, welcome back to the show. We're glad to have you back. This has been a long time coming because you have wanted for the past, 3 times you've guessed it, to do this movie. And I have said no each time.
Every time you usurper. No, I don't think you
Not
want to
so
talk
much.
about that.
Not so much said no, but but don't you rather talk about this movie and then you like this movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is my podcast after all. Why don't you talk about what I want you to talk about?
Exactly. Yeah.
Ruth, is that Johnny? Is that her? Like, do we want to call her Ruth or we want to call her by her author? Like, what do we?
It's up to you, Ruth. You want to be known as RJ or Ruth? Either way.
I'll do either. You can just call me Ruth. We talked
now that
about
we know,
the book stuff,
Yeah.
then we'll
you
say the
blew
pen
the
name.
secret already, Johnny. So
Yeah.
blew her
No,
cover.
now everybody knows my real name.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, Ruth it is.
Well, I'm glad you came on because it's only fair I let you talk about this because I know you've been yearning to talk about it. For so long.
Finally. Jeez.
Now, before we get started on the movie, real quick, you started your own podcast, and so I want to give you a chance to talk about that. What's it called? What do you guys do? And how can people find you on this podcast?
Yeah.
So it's called Paperback Flicks. I'm hosting it with my best friend from junior high. We're pretty much the same person, but not. Her name is Ray Davidson. I have to remind myself of her actual married name because in my mind she'll always be Ray Gordon. That's what happens when you grow up with somebody. It doesn't happen to guys because guys don't, change their names when they get married. So not a problem you guys have. But but it's about we talk about movies that were or books that were turned into movies. And then we read the book and then we watch the movies and we kind of compare them and like how well of an adaptation it was or which one we prefer more. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing that. We just finished our first season. So yeah, that's that.
All right, very good.
It's a really fun podcast. I just want to say I like the idea of just the way that you and Ray seem to tackle it. Like the first one I listened to, I think, was To Kill a Mockingbird because that's my favorite book.
Oh, okay.
I really like the way that you guys, the way that you girls, gals, but what's the correct term here? Gosh dang it. The way that you
Chicks.
the way that you two chicks talking flicks, the way that you tackled the subject matter, I thought was great, especially how, what I really liked was Ray going on about because that passage at the end about scouts sitting on Boo Radley's porch and just remembering the whole summer and the way she's able to formulate, you could tell that that's her becoming who she is. And she's talking about all the memories and everything and how everything's formulating in her mind and how Ray kind of said, I wish that could have translated into the movie, which you can't. You can't translate that kind of poetry into a movie. So I like the way that you tackled that kind of, and so I think that's important if you're going to talk about adaptations. I think it's really fun podcast. Johnny, you should talk about it a lot more.
I think what's good too is just the rapport you guys have. I was actually kind of not so much jealous, but wow, you guys have a really good rapport, and you can tell you guys get along really well. You have this natural ability just to talk to each other, and the conversations you guys have, they just flow, and so it's fun to listen to. So I was kind of I was impressed at how well you guys were able to get your ideas across and how you were able to kind of go from one point to the next. And it's just like I say, like Darin says, it's a really good podcast. So congrats on that. Way to go.
Is there anything you've learned, and what other episodes have you done? You did Jurassic Park was one, Harry Potter, you started off with that, Pride and Prejudice. Obviously 2 women, you're going to have to talk about Jane Austen, so that was fun. But
and there's so many Pride and Prejudice adaptations. It was a given. It had to happen. And Ray actually goes through and watches all the adaptations, and I don't have that much patience or time, so I give her credit for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. What are the ones that we've done?
You did Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. That was interesting because I'd never read Percy Jackson. It's actually a really good book. I liked the movie until I read the book. Then I was like, well, okay. I still like the movie, but maybe a little less. but that kind of happens. I think in some ways it's better to watch the movie first and then read the book, because you're more likely to like the movie if you don't have the book to compare it to.
Yeah.
And I think the most interesting episode we did was Ella Enchanted, because that book is almost nothing like the movie. It's like they took the name and the basic concept and they made an entirely different script. And so it's kind of its own thing. I mean, I like the movie, but the book's very different. And so it's kind of a strange animal where it's almost like inspired by the book, but not based off the book.
Yeah.
So
One thing that you guys do too is you have like independent writers come on your show and you interview them and kind of let them give a chance to, like, you know, advertise for their books and stuff. And tell us about that a little bit. Like, what's that like?
that's fun. Well, you know, being indie author myself, I understand how important it is to get exposure. And there's some people that really turn up their nose to the indie author industry. Although in a lot of ways, it's just like indie music or indie film. It's just, you know, we got an independent industry layer than everybody else for some reason. But so it's just nice to bring fellow authors on and give them a chance to talk about what they're doing. And it's really inspirational and it's fun to hear like how they started and what they're doing to promote themselves and where their ideas come from. And I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah.
So-
And you being an author yourself,
Yeah.
like, I bet that's kind of fun to talk to other authors. But you have some recent books that have been released. Tell us about those real quick.
Okay. So yes, the pen name is RJ Craddock. My third book in the 13 Tribes of Cain series came out at the end of last year. And I also published 2 children's books last year. They're part of a series called Color Kids Books. And it's just about color, and each book features a different kid who likes a particular color, and they tell us all about it. And yeah,
So
it's
what inspired that? Talk about what inspired that real quick.
my daughter Lucy is obsessed with pink, and that's funny because I hate pink. And I always kind of told people if I ever had a daughter, like, don't bring me a bunch of pink crap for the baby shower because I hate pink. But then of course, you know, I have a daughter and she loves pink and it's her favorite color. And I'm all about like celebrating their individualities. I'm the last person that's gonna, you know, try to be like, no, you can't like that, and like change who she is. So like I do try to teach her that we can't do everything pink. We need contrast. Or she would have like a pink wall and a pink bed and a pink this and a pink that, and it would be one big Pepto-Bismol nightmare in her bedroom.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stand being in there. So, but she loves pink so much that I started coming up with this idea. And it's also sort of based off of my love of Rainbow Bright growing up. So the color kids were like her sidekicks, her friends that helped out, and they represented different colors, and they all mined different colors from the caves of Rainbow Land to help Rainbow make the colors of the rainbow and make the world a beautiful place. So sort of inspired by that, where the color kids name come from. So it's kind of a little like that. But
Cool.
yeah, I've always been obsessed with color, so I thought it was kind of a fun idea to take my writing and my artwork and do a kids book. So
Yeah, that's the other thing. You don't just write the books, you illustrate them too. So all the pictures are you. So that's also kind of fun.
So your bio saying writer and illustrator is correct.
yes,
Yeah.
it's not a lie.
So those books are very, Jonny told me about those. Those are very inspirational. I love that idea. And also the decree, I haven't had a chance to talk to you. I think this is your best one that you've written so far. I just think it's a very smooth story. And you know how Gwen is in Vegas and the whole thing, and then she kind of gets in trouble because she's obviously bending rules that she doesn't know she's bending. But like, I just thought that the whole thing from beginning to end was just very, very well done and very well structured, and it was a very satisfying book. And I wanted to tell you that it just seemed, because I know you guys give it to me to edit, and I was like, there's nothing to edit in this thing. It's great. So yeah, third book. I think is this your fourth time on NostalgiaCast? Is this your fourth appearance?
Fourth, yeah. The first
It
time
feels like it.
was Labyrinth, right? And then we did Swing Kids.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we did Clueless. And
Right,
now this
right.
one.
So I was gonna say you've had a book for each time, but that's not right.
That's not true. I had like a big gap between book 2 and book 3. So the reason why book 3 is so good is because I had like 8 years to write it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was going to release it earlier, but like I sent it out to my beta readers like a year after the second book came out. I was trying to like make sure the third one got out, and I was kind of rushing it. And I sent it to my beta readers, and they're like, one of them particularly was like, if you release this now, I would never read another one of your books. This
Oh.
is not ready. And they're like, there's all these things that you're not talking about. And, I was like, yeah, he's right. And so I went back to the drawing board essentially, and I wrote another book to go with the first book that I wrote and intertwine them together. So the Gwen story was the book, and then the whole vampire side wasn't even there. And so that was the part that got the second book that got written and sort of put together to make that book. But it is my biggest book. It is massive. Yeah. So if you're okay with big books, you'll be fine with this. But each of my books gets like it's a little bit fatter. And eventually I won't be able to put my hand around it. It's gonna be so big.
Have to palm a book. Yeah. Well, taking the time in between books, the quality shows. I just wanted to let you know. So good job.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it'll take me that long for the next one. But as long as it's a good product, I think it's worth it. So
okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
But thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
Let's jump into the movie. I know from living with you and being married to you for 17 years that you have a rich history with this movie, and you often quote it, and you talk about how much fun you had watching it with your family. So tell us about your history of So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Okay, I can't really tell you the first time I watched it. I pretty much grew up with this movie. One of the few things my family doesn't like go out and do, or like when I was growing up, but I'm the youngest of 8 kids. So generally speaking, when you're, not very wealthy and you have a whole bunch of kids, you don't go places. Like you don't go on like big trips, and you don't want to like go visit someone's house and bombard them with all your children. So the one thing we did together was watch movies. And partially because my dad was in the film industry as a set builder, and over time all my brothers went out and worked with them in the industry too. And movies were a big part of our life. And there was a point where my dad was like, you know what? Sports are a waste of time. Academics are a waste of time. Just get into like music and drama and theater, anything that's going to get you in the industry. We're all going to have a family studio. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Like our own movie studio someday. And of course, it didn't happen that way. My dad's now retired, and I only have one of my brothers still working in the industry, but our main thing we did together, the family, like one of the only things we could ever agree on was movies. And this is one of the movies that we would watch almost religiously. We would watch it all the time. And we're the kind of family, you don't want to watch movies with us because we're quoting the movie as we're watching it. We're talking over top of it. We're very annoying to watch movies with. Some of us even do this in the movie theater. So watch out. I'm used to it, so it's not embarrassing for me, but it was something for Johnny to get used to. If he ever went to movies with us, be like, oh no, they're talking in the middle of the movie theater. He's all embarrassed, but I'm like, yeah, well, this is what they do.
It'd be worse. You could drum on your legs the whole time.
Yeah, you could do that.
Going and have it reverberate to the whole row of seats. Yeah, I don't know who does that.
Gosh, yeah. Probably falling asleep with somebody doing that, like on the footboard of the bed. And you're like, but yeah, I could quote this with my family forward and backwards. And over the years, I found some friends that also really loved the movie. And so I would quote it with them. And it became just kind of something that I could find any opportunity to put in to situations and quote it. And actually in college, I was studying animation and illustration. I had an assignment in our illustration class where we had to like take some kind of a song or a poem and do like a visual like video of just words and movement. And I did the very first woman poem of the movie, which was very weird for people because I had no idea what it was in my school. So it talks about, Saturday morning cartoons making you horny and stuff, and this is coming from me. What is this poem? What is this thing? But I just kind of sat back and laughed because it was kind of more fun knowing that nobody else there knew what it was. But
all right, Darin, let's hear your history.
I don't have a rich history. I just know that Wayne's World, obviously seeing Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live, Like we talked about, or we'll talk about, just different actors showing up in different movies. Like if they have a new movie that comes out, like, oh, I like their last one, I'll see this one. So this came out, I think, the year after or 2 years after Wayne's World or Wayne's World 2. I think Wayne's World 2 came out in 92. Yeah, so this would be the year after. Anyway, so I didn't see this in theaters. I did rent it on video, and that woe-man thing, it's in the lexicon even before you've seen the movie. I think it's just out there. It's just endlessly quotable, that kind of thing. But and I've only seen it once. I know that I saw it and I thought it was funny, and then that's it. And so the last time was at 93 all the way to now. So that's like 30 years. And finally watching it today, I still remembered a lot of the. I didn't remember certain things. Like I was like, is Nancy Travis the murderer? Like I couldn't remember like what was going on, right? And then it was funny because I was watching it with my wife, and she was sitting there, and she's like, "Oh, isn't it the sister?" And I'm like, "Oh." So she kind of spoiled something I already knew. But even going with my wife, she kind of blew my mind when we were watching, because she started quoting the Harriet poem, and I'm like, "Have you seen this?" And she's like, "No, I've never seen this, but I did own the soundtrack." And I was like, who buys the soundtrack without even seeing the movie? That kind of. And so, but yeah, it's got like Spin Doctors on it, obviously, The Laws or whatever. So it's a very popular soundtrack. So very 90s, like a lot of the music that keeps popping up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's 90s stuff. And so I remember that. But and then she was funny because she goes, or I could have, I knew you were doing this, and I could have rented this last night and watched it and just memorized this so I could blow your mind. I just thought that was funny.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah, probably. That's my head canon. But yeah, so not a real sharp or deep history with it. I just know that I saw it. I thought it was fine. It was Mike Myers. Mike Myers makes me laugh. That's it. So when you said that Ruth wanted to do this movie, I was like, sure, I'll watch it again. Haven't seen it in 30 years, so why not?
Yeah, okay. Well, I can't remember when I saw this movie. All I know is I saw it once, and I thought it was kind of off-putting. The one thing I will say real quick before I start delving into the negativity of it, I'm just going to say that I like the premise. I like the idea of the movie. I like the idea of someone falling in love with someone who he thinks is a murderer, and that idea is funny. That's a funny premise. I just don't think they executed it very well. But anyway, my history, I don't remember when I saw it. I saw it probably on VHS somewhere. And I remember just being kind of like not really getting into it, and not really liking, the Mike Myers character and his performance. And the only thing I can say I probably did like that Mike Myers did was the old man character.
Of course.
And that was funny. The dad, the grandpa, that was funny.
Not the grandpa, the dad. It's his dad.
But isn't he the grandpa? Oh yeah, he's the dad. That's
no,
right.
he doesn't have any kids. He's the dad.
With the Scottish accent and the whole thing, and yeah, that was kind of fun. But and like you, Darin, I forgot what happened at the end too. I kept thinking, I know she's not the murderer, but I couldn't remember who was, and so I was like going crazy trying to think of who the murderer actually was. And I was like, oh yeah, the sister. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, I never been really very fond of this movie, but I tried giving it a chance the other night when we watched it, and I still was kind of like, oh geez, this is not very fun. But however, I will say that our 8-year-old was cracking up at everything. So it was fun to watch him just laugh at all the jokes. So
mission accomplished.
Yeah,
that was fun watching it with the kids because they didn't know, and they kept trying to ask us, well, is she the murderer? And I'm like, just have to wait and see. They're like, you don't know? I'm like, yes, of course I know. I'm not going to tell you. Like I keep trying to tell them, don't ask. I'm not going to tell you. Just watch it. But yeah, that was fun. It was, and then they were quoting some of the things days later, and I was like, yeah, my work here is done. Passed it on.
Let's talk about Mike Myers a little bit, because like Darin was mentioning, he had Wayne's World, and obviously went on to other things with Austin Powers and everything. And what I wanted to point out, what I've been noticing anyway, is that when Mike Myers plays a character, when he can be funny and kind of like out there and cartoony, I think he does a pretty good job. But when he tries to play the straight man, it's almost hard for him to do that. And you see him struggling to do that. And he does these, muggy faces with the whole hello thing and all that stuff that he does. It's off-putting for me, because I'm like, I don't buy that this is who you really are. Like you're just trying to get a laugh, a cheap laugh at that, by mugging for the camera or saying these lines in a weird way. It's just not funny. And so for me, I almost get upset, because I'm like, don't do that. Don't try to be funny. Just be funny, because he can be funny. I have a hard time watching Mike Myers in this movie because I don't feel like the mugging for the camera and just being silly and the way he, says his lines and him doing ballet and stuff. It's just not funny. And so I like him when he plays the grandpa because that's a character. I like him when he plays Austin Powers. That's a character. And he's allowed to do those kind of wild and crazy things. And I can buy that. But when he tries to play a straight man, it just doesn't work for me. And so also, I don't buy that they fell in love that fast when he first walks into the store. No. There's no way it happened that quickly. And
They didn't
it's just,
fall in love
there was
that
no
fast. What are
chemistry.
you talking about?
There was no chemistry in that scene. And I was like, now all of a sudden he's in love with her. I just didn't buy it. And there's a lot of things we can talk about as we go. But as you bring things up, I'll probably have something to say about it. But anyway, what do you guys think about Mike Myers in this movie? Or as Mike Myers in general? Ruth, go ahead and go first.
Okay, so I think it's very important to note that you have to like the comedian to like these kind of movies. So if you like Ben Stiller, you're gonna like the Ben Stiller kind of films. If you like Adam Sandler, you'll like those movies. If you like Will Ferrell, you're gonna like his silly antics in his movies. Same thing with Jim Carrey. Like if you like their comedy, then you'll like the movie. If you don't like their comedy, there's nothing they can do that's going to make you like their films. And so I suggested in general, because you already don't like Mike Myers, he's not going to win you over. So, but for me, I feel like I like Mike Myers. I'm not bothered by his mugging. I think just about every comedian does that. But I think for me, it's funny and it's charming and I like it. So that works for me. I do agree that he's best when he's doing a character. I love the dad character. This is very good. Like the kids, our kids didn't realize at first it was him. They're like, oh, well, they found somebody that looks exactly like him to play his dad. I'm like, no, that's him. They're like, what?
Yeah.
And I think, and that's one of my favorite characters. And all of seeing horrible things he says to his big-headed son is hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you not laugh at that? But yeah, I do agree that he's best when he's doing a character and he can go all out. I think sometimes it's hard as a comedian to contain all the energy that they have. So when they play the straight part, I think it probably is difficult for comedians in general. That's why it's so impressive when somebody like Robin Williams or Jim Carrey can do that and contain the crazy and like somehow play a regular character. It's, quite an accomplishment.
Okay. Any thoughts, Darin?
Yeah, so it's fun being looking at my screen. I'm literally the middleman right here. Anyway, so it's fun seeing, like, hearing Jonny in perspective and then Ruth yours. I do agree. Like, the first note I have here is that my problem with Myers is that it always seems like he's doing a bit. So he's funny when he's doing the bits, but when he tries to be sincere, like there's a real shift in tone that you can tell. Like you can tell that he's going from comedic to serious, and it's jarring a little bit. Even though his line when LaPaglia or Tony is like, "Well, what did you dump this girl?" And he looks at him for a second, and goes, "She smelled like soup." Like that, I thought was believable. I thought that was very sincere. But you are right. Like him doing the ballet or him just breaking out into characters for some reason or doing these weird things. It's like, I can tell you're trying to be funny and it's overbearing to a certain point. Ruth, you are talking too about, before I even talk about that, and Jonny, you're right about the grandpa. It's like, I thought that the dad, what is his name?
Get it right.
Yeah, the dad, he's old, so we always equate grandpas with. Anyway, so the Stu character, I bought him completely. Like, he's a cartoon. I bought him as being really sincere. You know, the parts where he's talking to Brenda Fricker about, I still love you and that kind of thing. I bought that completely. I had no problem with that at all because he was in the character. And when he calmed down, it seemed very natural when he was being sincere with people because he's so on. And that's, Jonny, that's an interesting idea because I was like, yeah, that is weird. I completely bought him as the dad, but not as the main character because he's not. You're right, Ruth, about Jim Carrey has a very specific comedy. Robin Williams has a very specific comedy. Will Ferrell, I don't think Will Ferrell became big until the noughties, right? But even Will Ferrell, like me personally, I don't like the overbearing yelling Will Ferrell. I really think Will Ferrell is funny when he's the straight man and he's kind of seething with rage. I think he's funnier that way. But if we're talking about their actors, I think Robin Williams and Jim Carrey later in his career, I think they thread that needle of being really comedic and being really believable and sincere very, very well. And I don't think Mike Myers quite has that, especially as Charlie, because you can just tell that he's on, or he's trying too much to be sincere. I always just think of him as doing a bit. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to be able to, and I laughed at him when he was, excuse me, I believe I ordered the large cappuccino, that kind of thing. Or when he's doing the poems, I think he's funny. But like when he's trying to be sincere, I was like, I don't know, buddy. Like he doesn't quite have the acting chops of a Williams or a Jim Carrey or an Eddie Murphy or a lot of these other comedians who can be funny and overbearing, but then also dial it down and be very sincere and likable. So I agree with both of you on that.
Yeah, I think that's why it works so much when he plays a character, because he's allowed to, to go there, and he doesn't have to, rein it in. He can do those wacky characters, and it works because he's
And
Mike Myers.
He's
That's what he
genuinely funny, and when he's Stuart and he's going his huge pillow and he's going up with the Paglia, you can tell Paglia is having a hard time keeping a straight face, right? And I think the story is Johnny. If you're talking about the Nancy Travis character, I didn't believe that he would be that serious about her that fast. And it took like the montage to kind of settle down. I do think that there was an attraction there. The note I have is like, why isn't Nancy Travis, why wasn't she a bigger star? Because she's beautiful. And I was in love with her, you're watching them. So I kind of bought into that. But Mike Myers is so funny. I think the behind the scenes story is he was goofing off when they were in the deli and she wasn't watching what she was doing. And she sliced the top of her finger off. When she's cutting vegetables, and so she was yelling, "Cut, cut, cut!" And people thought she was doing the scene, but they had to rush her to the hospital. They sewed it back on, but that's what I mean. It's like Mike Myers can be so funny, and he's so on that he can distract you, and kind of it's fun watching people not break because every line that he says as Stuart is gold. I just think every one of those lines is just really funny.
I was going to bring up that montage because that's one of the things I hate about this movie is that montage, because that's supposed to see them, they're supposed to fall in love during that montage, and it's just him playing with meat, and it's just him being silly, and I'm like, how is this, you're supposed to make me believe that they're now falling in love because he's sitting there playing with the meat. It's just, okay, go ahead, I'll let you talk about it. But
you're not a woman. You don't understand that a funny guy can be sexy into himself. And the guy's really funny, genuinely funny, make you laugh. It almost doesn't matter what the guy looks like or anything else. A guy that makes you laugh is gold. So the fact that
not every man can play with his meat and be funny. So that's a real talent.
Thanks for going there, Darin. Thanks so much. Well, now I can't watch this movie the same way ever again. Thank you so much. I think you have to remember that she's had, I think it's three ex-husbands or previous loves just up and disappear on her. And so she's already sort of has this melancholy sadness about her. And I think that's part of why he was drawn to her, because she's like, why is this beautiful woman so sad? Like, how can I make her smile? How can I make her laugh? And she's pretty, so like, why wouldn't I want to try to make her laugh? And then I think maybe for her, he's a breath of fresh air, because she's trying to figure out what she did wrong and all the relationships that she keeps getting left. And here comes this nice guy who sort of distracts her for a moment, makes her forget that she's, all miserable and lonely and depressed. And that's invaluable to somebody when they're in this situation. Sometimes you need somebody to come along and sort of just remind you that life can be good, and don't worry about what's happened in the past. So I think that's why she probably falls for him right away. Why he falls for her, I don't know. If maybe it's the mystique, because she's mysterious and he's trying to figure out why she's so different or why she's so sad. And, sometimes the ones that are quiet and withdrawn attract more attention because the guys feel like they've got to solve the mystery of what she's about or what she's like, or there's a mystique to it. And so I don't know if that's what they're trying to say is going on with Charlie, that he's drawn to her because she's different from anyone else he's met, or if he's feels this need to sort of save her from whatever is making her sad. I don't know. But see why she falls for him.
He's a chronic relationship person. He's a chronic girlfriend person, and then he always pushes them away. right? Jonny, what
Mhm.
you're talking about with the story, what I clocked from this movie this time is, you're right. I like that idea that she doesn't understand, because when you think about the logic of the story, what happens, and again, spoilers for anybody who for whatever reason hasn't seen this 30-year-old movie, but she's dating these men, and then her sister gets so jealous that the sister writes a note and basically says, I'm leaving you, and then she kills the person. And Harriet has
After
no
she married.
idea. Yeah. Harriet has no idea why they just left her, right? And so that's why
Mhm.
she's so melancholy. And then I think the movie really oversells some parts, like when Charlie's watching like the current affair, and he's like, oh, they try to poison you, and inexplicably she comes upstairs with the health shake. It's like, that's a little like, why, like, that's really obvious. Like, so some of the comedy is really obvious, but then at the end, like when they're trying to maybe make you believe that she is a murderer because she's following him around that honeymoon inn or whatever, but she's doing that because she doesn't know when he's going to run off. Like, she's watching him to make sure. And so there is that melancholy to her character. But the problem is, I think Nancy Travis absolutely sells that idea, and especially Ruth, you bringing it up. Mike Myers doesn't sell that at all. I think Mike Myers doing the comedy bits kind of distracts from those nuances that makes the Harriet character work. And I don't know, I just kind of leaned on that because that's, again, a lot of these things are very interesting, and it's a good hook to hook this movie on, because this movie seems like just a series of skits from Saturday Night Live people that they've kind of strung together on this plot. But even then, that plot does work, even from an emotional level. I just don't think that Myers sells it as much as he should. And I didn't mention this before, Jonny, but when he shows up in Inglourious Bastards, that takes me out of the movie for a good 5 minutes, because it's just Mike Myers doing a character. So
yeah, I was going to mention that, but I didn't get around to it.
He just doesn't sell those dramatic parts, but Nancy Travis does. I don't know if that makes sense.
One thing I will say that I do like in this movie is the relationship between Anthony LaPaglia and Alan Arkin. So that's a funny little, sub.
That's a skit.
Going on.
That's a
skit.
That's a Saturday Night Live skit. Yeah.
And it actually,
but
could
it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny, but they could make it more believable. They could make it more realistic, but it is just like, let's get through the skit. They're trying to just get through it, and it does make you laugh. And of course, because Alan Arkin is so funny, and so it's fun to watch him, do that. Yeah. But anyway, that's one redeeming quality that I think it has is that those moments.
Well, that too, but Phil Hartman shows up for a bit. My name is John Johnson, but everybody calls him Vic. Yeah. And he's even like walking in a way, and like he's on it, and that stuff's funny. But like, I wrote down, like, why are they at Alcatraz? Like what's the point of them being here? There's no point other than, what would be funny? It would be funny to have Phil Hartman show up and be like the guide for Alcatraz. It's like, there's no, why are they there? It's just so strange. And
because they're in San Francisco, and if you make a movie about San Francisco, you have to show landmark places. You have to use the city. Otherwise, why are you in the city if you're not going to like take advantage of the setting, So and they wanted to tell that really disturbing, slightly funny because it's so weird story
about the ocular cavities,
and then have Charlie be like, and like after he tells this, like turn and start talking to his friend, and his friend's like, no, this isn't the time.
That does raise the question of, is this they're in San Francisco, but is this their first time going on the Alcatraz tour after years? No. Or clearly. Like, do they just make this a monthly trip? It just brings up a bunch of questions.
Regularly, they say something about how Vicky's the best. Vicky's the best tour guide. So like they come there just to hear this guy's weird, twisted stories. Yeah. Apparently they find this guy hilarious or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's funny. The Michael Richards part when he shows up he's just doing Kramer. That was really funny. Right. So it's just, or Charles Grodin when he popped up, I expected him to do a little funnier stuff. I mean, it's funny, but he's just no. I'm not gonna. No.
Yeah.
I think that's enough. I mean, it's enough for that character, and like he's so good at that. Just being like, no.
Yeah.
And like he sells the like deadpan so well.
Yeah.
You're right. There are more cameos in it than like I originally remembered. That I'm watching again. Oh yeah, it's him. Oh yeah. And I like the Alan Arkin parts because I think that helps flesh out the friend character, the policeman. And yeah, they're funny little skits, but for the most part, that's what most stories are. You have all these little scenes, and then you got to thread them together into like a big coherent, like cohesive story. And so I don't have a problem with there being like little sketches here and there. I think for me, it works better, obviously, than it does for either one of you guys. Like, I can like forgive that because I still feel like I'm in the story and I buy it as one cohesive thing. I think it's when you're watching something like, say, a TV show when they make a movie of it, like sometimes it doesn't work because you're like, this just feels like 5 episodes of the same show, but they try to just kind of drag it out or something. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So maybe in a way it's like Saturday Night Live skit movie. And maybe a lot of those guys' movies are that way, but it
Well,
works for me.
I know what you mean. Like the Downton Abbey movie that came out seemed like 3 episodes of the series that were strung together into a movie, and that was
Instead of a movie, yeah.
Yeah, but that was fine. I mean, you watch it and you're like, well, that's, you're watching a TV show, and the writing's a little obvious, but it still works as, when you're binging Downton Abbey, like 3-4 episodes, it just works kind of like that. So I understand what you're saying. That's fine.
Yeah.
Or something like The Fugitive, trying to tie in the part with Julianne Moore, where it's just, oh, this is what Richard Kimball did in the series, right? Like he helped people, and they threw that in there, and it was very organic to it. I just think like, and I'm not as extreme as Johnny, but like it was obvious that they were skits instead of being a part of, because you could lift the Phil Hartman thing out and it wouldn't matter.
No, it's just there for randomness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It was still funny. So it's at least it's not embarrassing.
Yeah. The thing you said about the drink, the shake, I like that because yes, it's a bit obvious, but I think also that sort of keys into his paranoia that he's looking for things. Like, is it really that uncommon for her to make him a drink? What if it's not? And what if it's something she does fairly regularly? Just this time, because he's in that paranoid mindset, he just watched that thing. He's suddenly going, she's trying to poison me.
That's
So
the thing.
they
never set those things up though. It just all of a
Yeah.
sudden happens. And so you're kind of like, why is that happening? You know what I mean? So if they would set those things up and like you let it build a little bit, it might work better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they seemed random in the moment, but you're right, Ruth. There's nothing to say that she hasn't made him a drink before, other than the fact that it took her 20 minutes and she should be getting better at that.
Yeah.
Well, if you do something right, you take your time.
That's right.
All right.
So I don't want to like talk about all the other things I don't like. I'm going to give you guys a chance to talk about what you do like, so I don't, bring the episode down. So is there anything else that you guys just love about this movie? What is it? Too late.
I'm kidding.
Is there anything else that you guys just love? What they do right in this movie that you can think of?
I love. Well, when we were talking about the dad, I love the dad. I actually really love the kind of creepy over sexual mom. For some reason I always found that really funny that she's like all over his friend. And she's all, you turned into a white wee sexy bastard. Did you know that? And she's all, and like trying to stand there like, that's what I tell him. Like his mom just mauled his friend, and he's kind of like, welcome to my life. My parents are weird. And then I love at the wedding when the dad's singing "If You Think I'm Sexy" to a bagpipe, and like the piper's trying to stay with him, and then like the piper like runs out of breath and he falls over. And he's like, "We have a piper down, our beach. We have a piper down." And it's just little things like that are, I don't know. It's charming, and it perhaps I'm too nostalgic for it because I grew up with it, but I don't know. You can say all the bad things you want to about it. I'm still gonna love this movie, and I think that's kind of part of where nostalgia comes into things. Like some movies don't get worse the older you get because you're always gonna have those same feelings.
Yeah.
And like some movies you can watch, and go, oh my gosh, why did I ever like this? But I don't feel that way about this movie. Anytime I watch it, I get that same feeling, and I remember the hundreds of millions of times I've quoted it with everyone that I've known.
I do remember.
Have a good time.
I remember the one time it made me laugh when I first saw it was when he hugged the friend and the towel dropped. Like I actually laughed out loud during that scene. And so that's what I always remembered from the movie was that scene. So when people would say the title of it, oh yeah, it's the one where the Michael Myers, gets naked and you see his butt or whatever.
You're like,
But that
I
moment
liked
was
the movie,
funny.
but
It was funny, and it was still funny this last time we watched it too. So,
yeah.
I will give it that.
Yeah, that was a random funny moment, and he's all, "I was just naked now." Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's fun. I think it's well written enough. It works for me. I think it makes sense in the end that it's the sister, but I don't. One thing I would say, I don't think there's enough foreshadowing that it's the sister. Same time, you don't want to like give it away, but I don't feel like there were enough breadcrumbs to make you think, oh, it's a sister. This makes sense now.
They also
Um,
didn't have any red herrings. It'd be nice to have like, maybe you think it's that person, maybe it's that person. There was none of that either. So you weren't really like trying to figure it out. Like, I really didn't care who it was. I was like, I know it's not going to be the girlfriend. I'm not going to do that. So I knew that, but I was like, I don't know who it is, and I don't really care who it is. It was like,
yeah.
that was what my problem was. There was no mystery really. It was like, okay, whatever. They're eventually going to tell me who it is. That's kind of how I thought. But anyway, go
Mhm.
ahead.
But then even when Rose, like it's like an exposition dump of like, this is everything that's going, and this is why I've done everything. So maybe it would have been a little bit, and they kind of hinted at that stuff earlier on to kind of maybe be
Yeah.
a red herring. I don't know.
What I
But
want to know is, how does she accomplish it in the past? Like on the honeymoon, supposedly on the honeymoon every time. How is she doing it? Like, is she drugging um Harriet so she's like passed out asleep, and so she doesn't know this is happening, and that she wakes up to a note? Like, what has she done in the past to make this work? And why is she suddenly so willing to kill Charlie that she's not trying to still hide the truth, that she's not trying to still hide it from Harriet? Because she doesn't want Harriet to know she's killing her husbands, but she doesn't want to lose Harriet. She doesn't want to share it.
Yeah.
But I would like to understand a little more how she did it in the past, and how she didn't get caught before, and why she's like, I don't care now. I am, gonna try and kill you in front of Harriet and not even try to hide now. Maybe she's just gotten to the point where she just can't hide it anymore. And does she expect her sister not to turn her in after she kills yet another husband, or is she
well,
gonna kill her sister this time?
the
Like, what
logistics
was the
of
plan?
it is, I think, because she says you're not supposed to be in the room when you find the note, right? Like you're.
Yeah.
So she says that, and then she says later, and I've had it. I can't take it anymore. And so I think that's maybe that kind of explains it. I don't know, but yeah, the
Maybe
logistics
she's
is like,
planning to kill Harriet too.
yeah. So maybe just the jig is up and there's no more hiding it. Like 4 husbands is enough. I don't know.
Yeah, because that reminds me of the part where like the friend finally shows up, finds Harriet in the closet, and gets her out, and like meanwhile, Charlie and Rose are on the roof, and he has her tied up, and he's trying to interrogate her. And like, meanwhile, you could hear
You
Rose
can
and Charlie on the roof, and he's like, ah, and she hears like the axe falling, and she's like, they're on the roof right now. Listen, they're on the roof. And like, he's like, well, we could talk about this downtown. Well,
because that would have broken his character. What I got from that is he's finally getting to be the cop, and he's been practicing these lines, and he can't break character, even though he hears stuff outside. I've got to get this out. We can either do this here, or we can do. I've got to say it, and then when he does that, that's when he's okay. Let's go outside and figure it. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Right,
Anything
Darin.
else
What
to
do you
point
love
out?
about it?
What do I? Well, I don't know. Like I said, I think there's a through line there. I think some like the story, like it works well enough. Like you said, I think just for me, it was just glaringly obvious that we're gonna do a bit now. Let's pause so we can do a bit instead of going off with the story. It's not, the bits aren't exactly integrated into the plot as well as I would like for it to be more organic. But the thing is, those skits made me laugh. So if I go into a comedy, like I have a very broad spectrum just because I don't have time to watch movies and be disappointed, right? So if I walk into a horror movie, if it scares me, great, it's done its job. If I walk into an action movie, if it gets my heart pumping, great, it's done its job. A drama, if it makes me feel something, great. A comedy, if it makes me laugh, then it's accomplished something. Even if it doesn't really work, this movie does make me laugh quite a bit. Like I said, everything that Stewart says, everything that he said, it's like, oh, look at that, he's a virtual planetoid. It's like an orange on a toothpick. It's like he's gonna cry himself to sleep on a huge pillow. All that stuff is so funny. I don't know, like I like all that stuff. The Phil Hartman stuff is just really funny. I laughed out loud at those things. So all these little skits, and even the LaPaglia thing with Alan Arkin, when Alan Arkin showed up, and again, Alan Arkin doesn't take credit. he goes uncredited in the movie because I said that it says that he just wanted to work with Myers, which is a weird. You want to work with Mike Myers? Like how big was Mike Myers back in the day? Anyway, so I thought, yeah. So that was, I really liked when he showed up, and he's Alan Arkin. He's just funny. I like that dynamic of, you're too nice. Like, why don't you come in and yell at me? And then
I'm too nice.
Yeah.
Well, someone told me I was too nice once, so I punched that guy in the face.
See, he didn't say that anymore, is he? So I like that. There's a payoff to just them. It's like a funny skit, and it did make me laugh. And Alan Arkin is really funny, and he just made me giggle. I like when was the last time that we saw an actor play multiple parts in a movie? We don't see it a lot. I know, like Dr. Strangelove with Peter Sellers playing like 4 different characters, and that was really fun. It's really fun and funny watching all that. And then Eddie Murphy and the Nutty Professor came out 3 years after this. Coming to America, where he plays all the guys in the barbershop, or the leader of the Sexual Chocolate. He's playing that guy. I like that. And again, how they use the split screen, John, like we talked about in Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan. They use the same kind of, and it's not quite as good, because you can tell like parts where it shows Mike, the supposed Charlie character, walking up to Stuart from the back, is like, that's not Mike Myers, it's the back. I thought that was funny. But when was the last time we saw it? It's fun to watch Mike Myers play a different character and then play this character over here. I liked all that. I think the story is that Sharon Stone was going to be in the movie as the Nancy Travis character, and she wanted to play both Rose and Harriet, and they're like, no, that's too much, but you could let Mike Myers do that. And so she dropped out anyway. So, but that's just it. I mean, even though it's very blatantly strung together scenes with the barest of plots, even though Nancy Travis sells that emotional side, and it's just very obvious, the skits made me laugh. And I think that's what's important. I've sat through comedies where I didn't laugh, and that's embarrassing. But this one made me laugh. So good job, everybody.
Well, I will say this. There was one thing that kept annoying me, and that was hearing the There She Goes song like 5
every
times.
10 minutes. When that montage
like
goes
11
up,
times.
Yeah, the montage goes up, and I'm like, this is the 4th time we've heard this song, is it not?
They replayed it over and over
for
again.
the rights for that song. They're gonna use it.
They're gonna use it, damn it. Yeah.
It just got annoying. Yeah, so the soundtrack is that song, and that's it.
Yeah, just over and over again. That's funny.
There was more than that on the soundtrack. There were other songs. Wow.
Well, the Harriet poem was one, I guess.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else we need to talk about? Any other notes or thoughts? Go ahead, Ruth.
We need to talk about the fabric.
The what?
The elite society of
Yes.
people around the world.
Right.
Yes, because you have some interesting trivia on that.
I know that Mike Myers made a movie called that. I haven't seen it. I just barely found this out recently. I was like,
is it a
great,
series or a movie?
It's a TV series. It's a Netflix
series. Yeah,
Okay,
it's a series.
I gotta watch it now. But that line is one of my favorites. So he's like, I hate the Colonel, his wee beady eyes, the smell of the Colonel's face. Oh, you want to buy my chicken? Oh, and the guy's like, well, how can you hate the Colonel?
Yeah.
Because he puts an addictive chemical in his chicken, makes you crave for it fortnightly, smart ass. And then he goes off about this whole the found fabric, and all the most influential people are a part of it. And anyways,
He's keeping that conspiracy. I thought that was a fun kind of little trivia bit. That's fun.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing I want to talk about is what the hell is going on with that honeymoon? They have a honeymoon chair. I'm like, get out of there. This is creepier than your wife being
tiny chair too.
What's going on? And they're all like, get him in your room. Ha ha ha. It's like, ooh, this is creepy. Even though you're on your honeymoon, I don't want this whole hotel to know what I'm doing.
And does everybody go there for their anniversaries every year? Is that
apparently?
It's like going to Alcatraz. You have to go to Alcatraz in March and then the honeymoon inn on your anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's everything. We talked about the cameos. We talked about the just some of the staging was just weird. But again, it's just a comedy. You're not supposed to take it seriously, even though I don't know. So it just
my biggest thing is I just wanted more from it. I mean, I will admit there are times that it makes me laugh, but I just wanted more. I just remember being disappointed as I was watching it and thinking this can be better than it is. And so when I find something like that, I usually walk away disappointed. But I know you like it, Ruth, and so I could appreciate how much you like it. And it was fun watching our kids laugh at it. So I had fun. So I'm glad you
well,
picked it.
Be grateful that I didn't have the same test for you that you had for me.
Yeah.
Johnny had this test. He took me to see two movies, and if I didn't laugh at those movies, then I wasn't the one.
No.
If I made you watch this and you hadn't laughed and decided that was it, this conversation wouldn't be happening right now.
Well, I would have laughed, and obviously you laughed because we got married. So
yeah, what
test.
you want to tell Darin what the movies were?
Yeah.
Anchorman,
Yeah.
and Team America, World Police.
Okay. You have to, number one, you have to laugh at least at the, I'm not even mad, I'm impressed. You have to laugh at that. And you also have to laugh at the montage song. So you have to laugh at those things.
Yeah.
And then I just looked it up. The soundtrack, speaking of songs, there are the Boo Radleys and the Laws both sing versions of There She Goes. Toad the Red Sprocket is on here. Soul Asylum is on here. Big Audio Dynamite is on here. Like I said, the Spin Doctors are on here. So yeah, a very Ned's Atomic Dust Bin. Never heard of that. But again, a very 90s soundtrack. I like when you can timestamp a movie. So yeah, definitely some fun songs to listen to.
Yeah.
So Ruth, if you were to give your final thoughts, what would you say?
I think it's good fun. It's a great example of the kind of things that Mike Myers can do. I think he definitely did improve as a comedian with the Austin Powers, and I think maybe in part it is because it's a full-blown character and it's a period piece, and like it kind of just delves into a whole concept and idea. So I do really enjoy the Austin Power movies too, and I think in a lot of ways he was a fixture of the 90s. He's very iconic of that time. He was one of the biggest comedians at that time. And I don't think you can do 90s and not talk about Mike Myers.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. Darin,
Yeah.
What's your final thought?
Yeah, I mean, you could always get more. I just repeating what I said before. It made me laugh. So mission accomplished. And yeah, I could watch those scenes with Stuart anytime, you know, and they'll make me giggle. And so yeah, I just think from that, at least that standpoint, not every movie can be a Dr. Strangelove, can just make you laugh and engage you emotionally and intellectually as it goes. So, but like I said, I just have a very bare minimum for a lot of movies, so I don't walk away disappointed. And if anybody hasn't seen this, like if you want to laugh, you'll laugh. So
yeah, if you're looking for a good laugh, you will laugh at it. Just don't be looking for a really, good storyline / plot. Although the premise is there, it's a good premise. It's a good idea for a movie.
And if you're looking for a very quotable movie, this is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quotes you can take from it.
endlessly.
All right, well,
And I
Ruth,
think
real
it's
quick.
funny when he fake ballets and he's like, nausea, let's just dance like children of the night. And it's like doing the whole thing. And those are some of my
Yeah.
favorite things to quote. And I have mimicked that many a times with my friends. So disagree with you. Hilarious. You don't know what you're talking about. All right. That's all I want to say.
Well, before we go, tell everybody where they can find your books, where they can find your podcast, and where they can find you.
Okay, so the books, I'm under RJ Craddock. You can find them pretty much anywhere online. And it's the 13 Tribes of Cain series. There's 3 books out. It's going to be like 7 books. So there's more to come. It's urban fantasy. So it's kind of modern times with fantasy elements. The Color Kid books, you can find those online as well. And they're all about color, probably like kindergarten to 2nd grade level in there. And the podcast is Paperback Flicks. Again, you can find anywhere you find podcasts and on YouTube, of course, because I like YouTube. And yeah, I think that's everything, right? Was there something else that you asked?
No, I think that's everything.
I think that was it.
I guess
Covered
my
it.
only question, and again, great, the Decree, great book, great, best, my favorite of the series so far. So I hope it gets better. I don't hope. I'm looking forward to it being better from here. So, but I guess my question for you is, now that we've done So I Married an Axe Murder, that doesn't mean that you're not going to come on the podcast anymore. That's
Oh, you
it's
sure?
not like we're
I thought that was like, this is my opus.
So I'm like, oh no, like this is it. Like we finally not put it off. And so that means this will be her last.
That's why he kept pushing it back. He's like, you gotta make her keep coming back. I keep
Yeah.
promising her she'll do it someday.
Well,
She'll
I like it when you guess, so it's fun for me to have you on. So I want you to keep doing it.
Next time, pick a
Alright,
movie that you adamantly disagree on. I really want to get a feel for that.
Oh, we know
our
what that
first
is.
fight.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that one for next time.
So
right.
thanks, Ruth, for coming on. Thanks for picking this movie, and we really appreciate you. And Darin, let's come back after the break and do our top 3 Mike Myers characters.
Ooh, yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Ruth.
Harriet, hard-hearted harbinger of haggis, beautiful, bemused, bellicose butcher, untrusting, unknowing, unlove, Ed. He wants you back, he screams into the night air like a fireman going to a window that has no fire. Accept the passion of his heart. I am lonely. It's really hard. This poem sucks.
And we're back. We want to thank Ruth for joining us. That was a lot of fun. I know it was a long time coming, and I apologize. I made you wait so long to talk about that movie. I can't say that I hate every part of that movie, because there are things that do make me laugh, like we talked about. It is a fun time if you're just looking for a fun, light comedy. So I just might have been expecting too much, and so I think that's my biggest problem, is it was a letdown because I didn't get what I wanted out of it. But yeah, it was fun, and Ruth loves it, and our kids love it now. So there is that to look forward to. We probably have to watch it more often with our family. But yeah, thanks again, Ruth, for joining us. Darin, we talked about doing our top 3 Mike Myers performances, because we mentioned in the meat of the conversation that Mike Myers is better when he's a character. Yeah. And so we talked about picking our top 3 Mike Myers characters. Mm-hmm. So you go ahead and go first. Give me your number 3 of Mike Myers character.
Well, these I'm not going to put these in order because I think they kind of
okay.
I've got a theme going for these 3, but they're all equally funny. And when you say characters, it's just like skits or movies or anything like that. And I gotta say, I like Mike Myers. I like him a lot. Like, I think he is funny. He can make and has made me laugh. It's just the acting thing, trying to be sincere, is a little bit, like we talked about, a little bit strange. But I do like him. I don't want to get across that I don't like Mike Myers, because when he pops up, I don't groan or anything. I'm like, okay, Mike Myers is funny. He's gonna make me laugh. Yeah. So the first one I'm gonna pick, and again, there's a reason I'm picking it. I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna do Austin Powers first. Okay. I don't particularly love those movies. I think as a whole, they have parts that really make me laugh, but as a whole, they're kind of slapdash for me. But there are parts in there that at least one time in every movie where I'm crying because I'm laughing so hard. And again, that's big. But the thing that's nice about Austin Powers is that he based this, his dad is very important to him. Obviously, father figures are important to me. So his dad, being kind of Scottish and British born and all these things, he grew up idolizing Sean Connery. He loved Sean Connery. He loved James Bond movies. And so Mike Myers based Austin Powers on the, Sean Connery as James Bond, based him on those characters. So it just seems like a very personal creation that he's able to create this whole media empire kind of just off this one character. But it's all in tribute to his dad, who he loves so much. And I think the story is that his dad didn't get to see him become this giant star, because I think he died before that. But as a tribute to that, I think it's just very sweet. It's very, even though the character himself is pretty raunchy, I think that the what it's parodying, I think it's spot on. I think they get a lot of mileage out of that comedy. So Austin Powers is my first choice for Mike Myers characters.
Well, yeah, Austin Powers was one of my picks too, so I'll go ahead and talk about that as well. I always thought Austin Powers was funny. It did make me laugh a lot. I agree with you. There are some moments where it's kind of like, all right, what are we doing here? But it's still, as a whole, it's funny. It was talked up quite a bit to me when I first heard about it, and so like I had expectations going in, and it didn't disappoint. I laughed and I had a fun time with it.
Yeah, baby.
Isn't the story? Yeah, isn't the story that he was like kind of joking around with his wife that like, do I make you horny, baby, or whatever? And she said, okay, stop right there and go write it down. So she made him go start writing this character down and kind of developing the character.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of fun, little side note that's kind of where it generated from.
Right.
But then also when he was writing, was it Goldmember, that he started writing in all these A-list actors into the script, and just they all started like showing up and just being in the movie. So that's kind of a fun story too, I think.
I got to say that opening 5 minutes of Goldmember is one of the funniest things I have ever seen in a theater.
Yeah.
Just with Tom Cruise and Kevin Spacey and Gwyneth Paltrow and Danny, just all those cameos were just, oh, my stomach was hurting. I was laughing so hard. So
one of my favorite things is the bit between Michael Caine as the Austin Powers Senior, whatever character, and they're having that back and forth, speaking the English.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they call it.
The Cockney, whatever. They're just having the Cockney off or whatever.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, Austin Powers, he's a character, and he makes that character work. And so Mike Myers does a good job as that character.
Yeah. My next one that I'm going to pick is an SNL character. It was Linda Richmond. You ever watch the Coffee Talk segments?
Yeah.
Where he plays like the old Jewish mother, and he had other guests on. I think Madonna showed up. Barbara Streisand was their idol, and I think she showed up for an episode. It was a lot of fun. But again, he based that on at the time, his mother-in-law. His mother-in-law was just with the thick New York accent and all the stuff, and just the Jewish guilt and everything. So again, it's just he's able to mine. And again, if you're going to parody a person in real life, there's a fine line between being cruel and being like really just respectful of whoever you're parodying. And I think the Linda Richmond character is a very sweet, like she's a caricature, but there's nothing offensive about her. Like talk amongst yourselves, that kind of thing, like discuss, that kind of stuff. It's real funny. It's really funny, but it's also very sincere, and it's an homage to somebody that he cared about. And so I think that's very sweet. And he's able to mine a lot of funny out of that. I think that really works.
Yeah, I agree with that. My second pick, I'm going to pick Wayne because of the music side of things. I loved Wayne's World when it came out. However, I will say this: I did notice that it felt like they were trying to make it longer. It seemed like they just had things they had to keep throwing in because it wasn't long enough yet. And like, so when those moments come in, I kind of go, "What's happening here? Why is like the Bohemian Rhapsody scene? That's an iconic scene, but it was something that they just added because they didn't have enough time. They weren't filling their 90 minutes yet. And so they threw it in, but that scene really worked. But there were moments here and there in Wayne's World that just didn't work for me, even though I still think Wayne is a character, and it's a step above the character he plays in Axe Murderer. It's not like, Austin Powers or Shrek, but it's still a step above, Charlie. But Wayne's definitely a good character that he was able to pull off.
Yeah, definitely iconic. It's weird because Wayne's World was so funny when you saw it in the theater, and then when I got married, I showed it to my wife, and it was like I think maybe I'd grown past it because I didn't laugh once during the whole thing. It was just a weird experience watching it that second time.
Well, Dana Carvey makes me laugh in those movies more than Wayne does. But
you know what about Dana Carvey is I don't usually like him like at all. I think he's just very like overbearing, and like he's almost he's a little more obnoxious than Martin Short. I like Martin Short a little better than Dana Carvey, but as Garth, I think Dana Carvey is really funny. So I think I agree with that. Okay, so the last one I'm going to pick, and we talked about him already, it's Stuart McKenzie. It's just, I think out of, like we talked about it with Ruth, it's like, it's so weird because when you guys talked about it, I'm like, that is strange. Like I didn't realize that until we were talking about it. The way that the Charlie character is sincere, but he's also Mike Myers. And so there's definitely two characters that he's playing there because one doesn't really mesh. And it's so strange watching the Stewart character, and all his lines are so overdone, but it's so funny. Like his huge pillow, or like he's like he's Sputnik, just with all the pointy like spikes and things like that. But when he says to his wife, and I still love you. Or when he's singing, do you think I'm sexy? It's a very funny bit, but it's very sincere. And it just, it's weird how much I bought that character, and it's sincere, and I bought him as a person, even though it's obviously Mike Myers. And again, he based all of Stewart's mannerisms on his father. So it's a very loving tribute to these people that mean so much to him. And you know how you have family members that they're so funny, and you love being around them because they're just so much of a character, and they're not a part of your regular life. So when they show up, it's like, oh, this is going to be a great time, right? It's like that. It's like you have these people that you love to hang around with. And Mike Myers was able to just pull all this comedy out from those mannerisms and things that he just found so funny. It's just, again, very loving tribute. And I think that's great about all three of these that I've
Yeah, I will agree. I think he was definitely the best part of that movie. So I think, once again, he's playing a character, did a great job doing it.
Yeah.
My final pick is Dr. Evil, because you can't go wrong with Dr. Evil. He always makes me laugh. He comes on screen, he makes that face, the whole thing with his pinky. It's so funny, and it's so well done. It's way over the top, but it's so well done. And so he's definitely my favorite Mike Myers character.
Well, that's another James Bond parody. He's parodying the Donald Pleasance "You Only Live Twice" Blofeld, and it's just so much comedy once you find something that you're able to just yank so much comedy from it over 3 movies, and at the end, Dr. Evil is still so funny, and he's got like Mini-Me with him, and the Vern Troyer character, and it's just, I think that's great. Like once you have that, it's like, keep going, like go until you start to feel like everything's kind of drying out. But good choices.
All right, so we had Austin Powers, right? Wayne and Dr. Evil for my picks, and yours were?
Mine was Austin Powers and Linda Richmond and Stuart McKenzie.
All right, so that'll do it for So I Married an Axe Murderer. But Darin, next week or next time, we do have a guest again, and we're going to talk about Face Off, correct?
That's right. We've got film critic Sarah M. Fetters, who I've been chatting with a lot on Twitter, and she's just been a great, talking about Wenlei. It's like watching Sarah kind of build her fan base and all this writing, and just the way that, and we'll talk about it, but the way that she's able to have all this personal information that comes out in her movie reviews. It's just been a great fun to know her on Twitter. And I've been aching to talk about Face Off. So our friend Brian Scuttle did an episode with somebody else, and I still make him feel guilty about that he didn't choose me or choose us to talk about Face Off, because we had a great experience with that. So Sarah and Fetters, film critic. Next time on NostalgiaCast, we're going to love to talk about that movie. John Travolta, Nicolas Cage, 3 great. John Woo, great time.
Yeah. All right, then, for NostalgiaCast, I'm Jonny Craddock.
And I'm Darin Lundberg.
And hello!
Hit! Get down! All right, we'll see you.